Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Daniela Torres, and today we are going to start with this webinar on urban innovation platforms. So first of all, I would like to thank all of you for joining the webinar. We are going to provide to you some house rules in order to make our webinar a little more interactive and more pleasant for all of us. So of course, first, no fire drills planned for today. And please ask your questions in the questions and answers chat box that you have in GoToWebinar. Just for you to know that once you submit the questions, these will be forwarded to the different speakers and panelists. Another thing that is important to know is that you cannot unmute yourself. This is to keep the good sound and the good quality of the webinar sound. In case we are going to have at the end some debate, we will encourage you to raise your hand so we can give you the floor and unmute yourself, unmute yourself, so we can listen also your questions live. Any technical help can be requested in the chat to the tech support. We are part of the team following this webinar, so hopefully everything will be fine. There's another thing that is important is that this webinar is going to be recorded. So in case you would not like, in case you don't like to be included in the recorder, please let us know so we can manage these too. In that sense, I think that we can continue. So just to tell you a little what is the agenda for today, we are very glad to have a diverse group of panelists. We are very happy from ICLEI and from RISE to organize this webinar in the context of the Ruggedize project also. And we are talking about today urban innovation platforms. And we are going to start this session with a short introduction of what an innovation platform is. Probably we have a lot of concepts around there. So we are going to have an introduction on that. Then we will have the opportunity to listen to 3 case studies from 3 cities in Europe: the city of Glasgow, the city of Zaragoza, and the city of Umeå. After that, we are going to have a small panel debate where we would like to have your input, your questions, and also to interact as much as possible together with our panelists. Saying that, I think that we are able to start. So just let me please introduce our first expert input. I would like to introduce Magnus Johansson. He's a senior researcher from RISE Sweden, which is one of the co-organizers of this webinar. Magnus, the floor is yours. Thanks for sharing what an innovation platform is and also how can they help cities to steer sustainable development. Magnus, floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much. Now we always have this tricky part when everything is got to work. But now I hope you can see my presentation. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, great.
Perfect.
Thank you. I will just go back. My name is Magnus Johansson. As you say, I work as a senior researcher at RISE, Research Institute of Sweden, and I will give a short introduction, very, very brief introduction to what an urban innovation platform is, very, very short. And first I would like to start, why should we have an urban innovation platform? Could you see when I change? Yes, sorry. Cities face more and more complex and wicked problems, and also city must handle tricky and wicked landscape of urban governance. You can't. We have climate change. We have the social tensions. We have migration, and we have social tensions within the city. But politicians and other stakeholders in the city don't own the questions. You need to collaborate. And there's also no lack of smart solutions. I think Ruggedize, it's a very good example of this. Ruggedize is about smart solutions for resilient cities. And we have lots of smart and technical solutions which could help us to handle these complex problems. But the problem is that we need to find structures to upscale those solutions and use those solutions. And urban innovation platforms could be one arena for these forms of upscaling and solutions. And then I will also talk a little bit about co-production and collaboration, because there's an agreement. I think there's a general agreement among us that we need co-produce and we need to collaborate, but there's also disagreement and different experience of how to do this in reality. But it's very, very easy to talk about collaboration and co-production of knowledge, but it's not so easy to do this in practice. So we need innovations, and we also need to develop collaborative innovation. The problem in innovation is that this innovation is like icebergs, or successful innovation is like icebergs, that we see this successful innovation, but we don't see all things that are under the surface, to talk about failures and sacrifices and all the hard work and all the disappointments. Because if we're doing innovations, if we work with innovations, we also take risks, and maybe we fail a lot, and we need to overcome lots of resistance, and we need to have this hard work. But an innovation platform could also be a way to support people and help people to come through all the failures and the resistance and things like that. So urban innovation platforms, to make it very, very short, you can say that in an urban innovation platform, you're doing two things. You gather and you govern. You gather the relevant stakeholders, you gather citizens, other actors, others from academia, you gather a broad range of knowledge, skills and interest and agendas and needs and ideas and so on. You need to gather people and you need to gather relevant stakeholders to work with innovation. But that also means that you need to govern this. Because if you gather people with a broad range of knowledge, skills and interests and agendas, you also need to handle conflicts, you need to handle tensions, you need to support the synergies, you need to share resources and knowledge, and also very, very important, you need to make decisions, because innovations, it's more than research. It's not just to develop new knowledge, it's also to put knowledge and put new ideas into work to use this. And then you need structures for governance. And it's very, very easy to describe innovation in somewhere on paper. You need to define problems and challenge, you need to generate new ideas, and you need to select the most promising ideas. We have lots of models and descriptions of innovation, but in each of these steps, you need to gather the right people in the same room. You can define the right problems and almost you can select the most promising ideas, but you also need to govern. Each step need different form of governance. It's not enough to get the right people in the right room. You need to govern the process, you need to support the process, and that's also one of the important things when it comes to innovation platforms. When I talk about the innovation platform, and those examples that we will listen to later on during this seminar is very much about collaborative innovations. And when you work with collaborative innovations, you need to go through several steps. First of all, you need people who could convene. You need to get people on board, and you need different forms of roles to manage a process of collaborative innovation. You need to get people on board, you need to gather the right people in the room. But then you need people who could both gather but also govern. You need facilitators. It's not enough to get the right people in the right room. You need to facilitate the process. You need to facilitate the interaction so you can support collaboration. But collaboration is not enough if you want innovation. You also need people who could function as some form of catalysts, who can support these collaborative processes. You can get this innovation process. So you need to gather people, you need to gather the right people, and you need to govern the process. And that also means that in an innovation platform, you need people who could take these different kind of roles. You need people who could convene the right stakeholders to get on board, to convene people to this is an interesting process. You need people who could facilitate. Sometimes this is the same people who both could convene and facilitate, and sometimes you need process leader, you need facilitators to really get this collaboration get going. But you also need people who can function as catalysts. But it's not enough to just collaborate around the issues. You also need to catalyst, and you need to combine this form of gathering and governing. And Ruggedize is a lot about utilization of smart solutions. It's also how you can work with upscaling, and the urban innovation platform we talk about within Ruggedize is innovation platform that are related to could support upscaling and support And it also means that during this process, from having a very, very smart idea, having a very, very smart solution, you need to govern different kind of steps. You need to develop good procedures for idea generation, but you also need a lot of innovation management. You need to gather the right people, you need the contacts and the competence, but also you need different form of governance. You need also to govern the political procedures, especially when it's come to urban development and developing smart cities. You need to handle the political level and the political processes. And not last but not least, sometimes you need to handle the conflict management, because when you're working with innovation and you're taking risks and you also try to change things, you also sometimes challenge power structures and you're challenging established routines, you're challenging established norms. You need to handle this conflict management. And I will showing the last slide. You can find lots of examples of urban innovation platforms, and my point and my central point of this presentation is that if you always go back to these issues about gathering and governance, then you need to ask yourself, which kind of stakeholders do I need to gather, and what kind of structures? Do I need to gather a network of platforms to support knowledge exchange and connecting local initiatives to global level? Then it's a different form. There's some specific forms of governance. You need to govern network meeting, you need to govern study visits and exchange of ideas. If you want to establish a more local network platform, then you have another form of governance. You need to govern local collaboration. You need convener, you need this catalyst persons, you need these facilitators. Maybe you don't need so much facilitators if you want to connect a network of platforms, but facilitators may be more important when you have worked with local network platform. If you have a supportive financing platform, then you have another form of gathering and another form of governance. And when you go down to more collaborative strategic platforms, then you have again another form of governance, because you gather different stakeholders. And you can see, if you going below, lay down in this list, things when it comes to this co-creation platform, I think the co-creation platforms is the arena when you work with collaborative innovations and you work with co-production of knowledge. You work with workshops and living labs, and you're supporting bottom-up initiatives. I think that form creates the highest demands of good governance, because to govern a co-creation platform, it's much more labor intense and then much more difficult comparing to govern a network of platforms. So depending on which you want to gather and which kind of results you're looking for, you also need different form of governance. And I think we need more co-creation platforms. I think we need, if you want to handle all these challenges and issues I present in the first slide, we need this form of co-creation platform. And these co-creation platforms also need a very supportive and good form of local governance. And I think it also rises the highest demands. And in the following presentations, the following 3 presentations, I think we will get some different examples of gathering and different examples of governance. And I hope those examples, and I also hope this presentation could inspire you and also give you some more general idea about urban innovation platforms and how urban innovation platforms. And in the end, to sum up, I think urban innovation platforms is just about 2 things. It's about gathering and governance, and you can do this in very, very different ways. And it also depends on the local needs and the local contexts. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Magnus, for this wonderful introduction to urban innovation platforms. I think that that in the smart city arena or in the smart city ecosystem that we are, when we listen sometimes urban innovation platform or urban platform, it comes to our mind only the technological part of the platform. So I think that you have made a very good point that that in order to advance of the adoption of technology that sometimes is already there, we need to have very good structures. We have to gather the correct stakeholders and govern to make things go forward. So thank you very much, Magnus, for your input so far. We have no questions of our participants. I think that they are a little shy now, but I think that during the other presentations, we will have more. I have some questions already also prepared, but I think that we will leave that for the debate at the end. But thank you very much, Magnus, for introducing this. Also, it's important also for you to know that in the documents of these webinars, you can see one document that within the ruggedized projects we prepared, which is about urban innovation platforms. And there you can see some of the different examples that Magnus mentioned. Risa is one of the key authors of this research. So please, if you would like more information, also follow this. You will also have the presentation also to later, so you can have all of the information that Magnus has provided. Thank you very much. So now I would like to give the floor to Christine Downey from the city of Glasgow. Christine, thank you very much for being here. Christine is our ruggedized project officer in the city of Glasgow from the Glasgow City Council. Christine, floor is yours. Thanks. We really look forward to listen to you and how urban innovation is taking place in Glasgow.
Thank you very much. Can I just check that you can see my screen and you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see your slides perfectly.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'm just going to talk to you about Glasgow's urban innovation platform. It's known as Sustainable Glasgow, and I'll talk you through what has worked for us and what is working for us, and then maybe what hasn't worked for us in the past in terms of our urban innovation platform and the actual governance structure of that. So the Sustainable Glasgow Partnership was initially formed in 2010, and that was based on a report written by the Scottish Government and the University of Strathclyde. And that report really detailed how we needed to reduce our carbon emissions and the cost that would be involved in doing that. And one of the suggestions from that report was that we would have a partnership set up to try and work towards our carbon reduction targets. So the partnership was set up. We invited various members to attend that included transport sector, the private sector, academic partners, the housing sector, consultants from across the city, and we formed a collaborative workspace to try and develop some of those projects. So the overall cost to us was supposed to be £1.4 billion, which was incredibly expensive. And we managed to actually achieve our 37.5% reduction in our carbon emissions with significantly less from deploying solar and wind and ground source heat pumps. So we did manage to achieve that target through the partnership, but the partnership was set up, it was based on shared ambition and goodwill, but it wasn't a perfect model. GCC, the council in Glasgow, we were the main lead, and we had to really deliver most of the projects. So it was quite an onerous task for us, but the projects as well were being delivered and predominantly by the council, but developed by the partnership, which, as I said, did include the private sector. So that was quite difficult because the private sector partners that were on board couldn't actually bid for any of the projects due to procurement law, and it made it quite a difficult relationship. So they actually had to leave the partnership because they were unable to actually bid for the work that they were suggesting to us, basically due to public sector procurement regulations. But as I say, we did meet our targets. So moving forward, in 2019, due to the global climate crisis, we declared a state of climate and ecological emergency. And we also set a target to be carbon neutral by 2030. On the back of that, we also developed our climate emergency implementation plan and a circular economy route map as well. And basically decided on the back of that we couldn't deliver on the climate emergency in isolation as a city council, and what we had to do was look at the structure of Sustainable Glasgow try and reimagine how that partnership would be able to actually deliver projects that would be meaningful and actually contribute to the climate emergency and tackling those issues. So we declared our state of climate emergency in 2019, and at the start of 2020, before COVID, we had a large public forum event where we invited partners from across the city, various organisations, charities, members of the public, large organisations, to a large event that we held actually in the COP26 venue. And we had various panelists there, and we discussed lots of different issues. And from that, from those discussions, we used Slido a lot when we were there as well to actually ask the audience questions so that we could get a feel for where we were as a city, but also how we would structure Sustainable Glasgow moving forward. And the image at the bottom there was is actually an artist's interpretation of the conversation from throughout the day. So we tried to make it quite a light-hearted event whilst also tackling some really serious issues and having some quite serious conversations. So the new structure, there is the Sustainable Glasgow Board, which is still led by the leader of the council, Councillor Susan Aitken. It still has 16 founding members, and the main one that I would point out there is actually Scottish Power Energy Networks. So they're actually the only organisation that sits on the board out of the 16 partners that is a private company. And for those of you that aren't aware, Scottish Power Energy Networks are actually our energy network provider for the city. So it's really important that they're involved and contribute to the conversation around the climate emergency and how we tackle that in the city. So I'll talk you through the basic structure of our innovation platform now and how that has changed. Sustainable Glasgow itself obviously sits at the top. That is the main board with the 16 members from the previous slide. And how we decided to structure it was with 4 thematic hubs. And those are the green infrastructure and transport, heating and housing, greening the city and environmental improvement, and the green economy and private sector. So those 4 thematic hubs all feed into Sustainable Glasgow and feed into the board. There is a chair for each of the hubs, and the chair has basically the control to make a lot of decisions as to how their specific hub operates. So there were terms of reference developed for the Sustainable Glasgow board and for the hubs, and the chairs have to use that as a guide to how they actually structure and order the work that they're doing. So what's really important is that they have a kind of clear plan moving forward for the next 12 months as to how they will actually deliver projects from the hubs. So the hubs are really about delivery and action and not being a talking shop, basically. There needs to be clear outcomes from the hubs that report into the board. The chairs as well have to kind of decide and try and use the partners within their own hubs to look at actually how to build an economic case for delivery of projects in the city. And the chairs have the capacity and the decision-making ability to decide who sits on those hubs. So whilst the Sustainable Glasgow board is, I guess, quite structured in that we have the 16 founding members that sit on the hub and are the board that needs to be consulted, the hubs themselves are a lot more fluid. So there are various members that attend the hubs. So as an example, we have an organisation in the city called Lateral North, and they are an arts organisation that use art to communicate with people around climate change issues. So that is an example of one partner that sits in one of the hubs. But we also have organisations such as Deloitte that are global consultants that sit on another hub. So there is a very wide range of partners. Organisations can be invited into one of the hubs if it's just to present an idea or to give expert advice for even just one session. So the hubs are much more fluid, and partners in the hubs can kind of come and go as the conversation sees fit and as the chair decides. So what I would say as well is that, as well as the hubs and the Sustainable Glasgow board, also within Glasgow City Council, we recognise that we need to make sure we have our own house in order to actually deal with climate change and the climate emergency. So internally to the council, which doesn't have any external partners on it, is the Climate Resilience and Sustainability Board. And that board is actually structured of and consists of senior managers within the council, and it's their job to really make sure that all of the departments now across the council are looking at sustainability as being core business, and we're moving away from sustainability only being done by the sustainability team, and now it's everybody's business, and that's really critical for us as an organisation. So that board also feeds into the Sustainable Glasgow Board. And then one of the other drivers, I would say at the moment, is the fact that we do have COP26 this year. It is important to us as a city that we recognise that that is a driver for us. So not only are we the hosts of COP26, but we really need to be setting an example of best practice and making sure that when we are on a global platform with a spotlight on us, that we are actually showcasing what we can do as a city and showcasing what projects and initiatives we can lead to tackle the climate emergency. So at the moment, the hubs are reporting into the Sustainable Glasgow Board, and it's meeting every 4 weeks. So the board convenes the last Tuesday of every month, and the hubs also meet every 4 weeks and feed into the Sustainable Glasgow Board. Every single month they have to produce a report for the board to detail the progress that they're making. So I'll say again, it really is about delivery and action for us. We need to make sure that we're actually achieving what we set out to achieve and making real difference in the city. So as an example, one of the innovations that's come from one of the hubs, from the Green Economy and Private Sector Hub, it's led by Scottish Power Energy Networks, and the chair is actually their CEO. Scottish Power Energy Networks are also our project partners in Ruggedise, so they're very involved in things that we're doing across the city. So what they have developed through that hub is a charter pledge for businesses in the city, and that charter pledge is basically supporting businesses which will then in turn support the city to become carbon neutral and net zero. So you can actually see from the bottom of that document just a list of the various partners that are actually involved in creation of that, and that includes smaller businesses, as I say, large consultants. And what Scottish Power Energy Networks have managed to do as chair of that hub is actually come to an agreement whereby the charter pledge will have management of that system by a private consultant for free. So they've really utilised the links that they have with the private sector partners to actually develop something that's very meaningful for them and that's suitable and appropriate for them as well, whilst also managing to achieve a lot and one of the ambitions that we'd set out in our climate emergency implementation plan. And it's probably something that would have been unlikely for the council to actually achieve in isolation and achieve without that link to the private sector. So it's a really good example of the partnership working really well and really using the strengths of our partners to deliver tangible projects that will make a difference. So finally, we have obviously gone through a restructure of Sustainable Glasgow, and the next thing that we've decided to do is actually rebrand Sustainable Glasgow so that we have basically one point of contact for everyone to go to where they can find out about all the sustainability initiatives in the city through the partnership and what the partners are doing as well. So the Sustainable Glasgow logo has been rebranded. It was quite a dated infographic, and we're also launching a website as well. So please, my final point would be really to please follow us on Ruggedised and Sustainable Glasgow Twitter feeds. Our website hasn't launched yet, but we are due to launch very soon, probably the end of the month or the start of June. So for updates, and if you're interested in any of the other work that's coming from the hubs and Sustainable Glasgow, please follow us there for more information.
Thank you very much, Christine, for this inspiring presentation about Sustainable Glasgow and how you have advanced in this process for many years, and with COVID in the middle, and also with having the COP26 also now, you are everybody's looking at you now. Glasgow is just there. We are all looking at you, and I think that it's wonderful to see how you manage to involve the different stakeholders. And I am very surprised how you've been following all the different hubs every month. So nobody can just say, I will not do this. So there's a perfect and very well-structured governance model. So thanks for that, Christine. We are going to go to the next presentation, and then we have several questions already for you. We will save them for the debate now, okay? Thank you very much. So now we are going to go to our next presentation, which is from Daniel Sarasa from the municipality of Zaragoza. He is the director of Zaragoza City of Knowledge Foundations. Daniel, good to see you. Bienvenido. Can you listen us correctly, Daniel?
Perfect. Can you listen to me?
Yes, Daniel. Thank you very much.
Great.
We can listen to you.
Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you all for thank you for the to the attendees. Thank you to ICLEI for inviting us to share our experiences on citizen innovation, and thank you also to the previous speakers for their inspiring view about innovation. So I'm glad to present what we are doing here in Zaragoza during the last year on this subject. Well, for those of you that don't know the city yet, Zaragoza is a Spanish city located in the northeast part of Spain. We are 700,000 inhabitants. We're in the middle of a triangle between Madrid, Barcelona, and the Basque Country, and also Toulouse in France. And we are known by being a great big logistic hub in Southern Europe. Our airport is second in Spain in cargo. All the shipments from the companies like Zara, for example, are shipped from our premises in Zaragoza. Can we go to the next slide, please? My presentation is a little tricky in terms of logistics also, because I am speaking to you from my mobile, so I need to rely on the ICLEI stuff to go through the presentation, but hopefully it's going to be working fine. So, well, the first thing this presentation is about urban innovation platforms, but I'd like to speak about innovation more as an ecosystem, and as an innovation ecosystem that we need to build in the city. And we need to build this innovation ecosystem because we want to make the cities true innovation platforms. So our companies, our citizens, our institutions, very important, our researchers can create value and can contribute to optimizing the value of the city. Now, for this to happen, even in the digital world, you need physical premises. You need physical connectors between all these actors. We can speak about a quadruple helix of innovation here, even quintuple helix of innovation if we're adding artists. And now our connector, our physical innovation hub is Utopia Center for Arts and Technology that you can see there in the logo. In Utopia, there is the City Hall, our foundation, the two universities of the area, the main banks, many of the most advanced IT companies. We're all working together to create this ecosystem. Okay. One of the things that we do in Utopia we have startup incubators, we have fab labs, we have a residence for people to live, work, and create. We have many things. We have exhibition rooms. But one of the things that we have is a civic lab that we call the Open Urban Lab. And this lab connects together these city-making activities with citizens, companies, etc. One of the programs that we've launched to do this and to create this sense of ecosystem is 100 Ideas for Zaragoza. Now, the goal of this project of 100 Ideas is that everyone that has a great idea to improve the city can present that idea on the table, and try to engage everyone, public and private resources, to make this idea happen, to make it real. So in a sense, our motto is that you as a citizen can make the smart city, and that comes with great possibilities, but also with responsibilities, because it's not just throwing ideas on the table, but it's to make responsibilities, to take responsibilities to push this idea forward. Next slide, please. Now, some of the things that we do are physical, but some of them are digital. So the city has both sides. It has a physical and a digital layer. I'm going to talk about examples. For example, we did co-creation methodologies with the community around Utopia to co-create our canteen, our cafeteria, in a project that is called Cafetopia. But we are also making co-creation and open innovation dynamics to co-create the citizen card of the city, a city that is truly the digital key to all public services in the city, from transportation, taxi, bikes, parking, public libraries, Wi-Fi, tramway, etc., etc. And by putting this double side approach, we can create things that you can experience, but that you can also touch and that you can enjoy. Next slide, please. What you need for this, obviously, and somebody, a previous speaker, talked about that. It's an API, an application programming interface to the city. But this application programming interface is not necessarily digital. It's not necessarily a piece of technology. It's people. It's people that whose main role is to facilitate, to lower the barriers between technology and between the city, which can be very complicated, the city infrastructures that can be very complicated to understand from outside. So to lower those barriers, technological, economical, knowledge barriers, and to make possible to a wide range of audiences that are interested in improving the city and interested in putting ideas on the table, to effectively connect with the city infrastructures. And that is what we do in the Open Urban Lab, and we have a set of mediators, some architects, engineers, or journalists, cultural mediators that do this job of facilitators. Next slide, please. And little by little, we've been able to configure a very particular citizen innovation cycle, which is based on our experience and on how we've been able to achieve some of the projects that we have delivered, and we have had many frustrations, many failures. So this is the distillation of our experience. So everything starts by setting the problem. Someone said that it's much more intelligent, much smarter to ask the right questions than to give the answer. So it's very important to start with a correct setting of the problem. Okay, and data, urban data, is a rich source of information to correctly address the problem. This is the example of how we created a new network of parking spots for private bikes. Now, somebody said, okay, there is a new development in the southern part of the city, which has a lot of young families coming there, but data showed that we didn't have enough public biking infrastructure in that areas. Now, the contract for the public bikes was impossible to expand to these new developments. So we had to look for more imaginative solutions. Okay, so we did some co-creation workshops explaining to the residents and to companies what the problem was, addressing this problem with open data, and we ended up coming with a new challenge, open innovation challenge that we called Bicisur in the first place, whose objective was to ask for companies to create or to provide solutions for these new parking spots that had to be integrated, and this was part of the co-creation sessions. It had to be integrated with the current citizen card of the city. The challenge was called Bicisur, and the result was, next slide, please. The result was a new name. The new name of the service was called Bicia, and it was a network of parking spaces powered by solar plants in the roof that people could access in these new developments and leave their bike, and with the citizen card they could hop into the tramway or into the bus. These places were placed near the main transportation hubs. Okay, next slide, please. Another example is this project. Imagina tu Patio is called, in English is Imagine Your Playground. And the problem here was that in a specific school in the city, there were problems for sharing the patio, for sharing the playground between different groups of students, and it wasn't easy to address that problem. So what we did was to take the educational community of this school to our open urban lab, carry out some series of design thinking sessions. So we designed what these people wanted, and then of course this involved completely changing the patio, completely changing the playground. So this was a very inspirational project because we took the Fab Lab out of Utopia Center for Arts and Technology. We took the Fab Lab to the playground, and the people from the school not only co-created, not only co-designed, but also co-delivered their own solution. Could you click please on the video? We can just show 1 or 2 minutes of the video. Let's see if this. Okay.
Yes.
So that's yeah. I think that's enough to grasp what the project was about. And it's important here. I want to mention the crowdfunding mechanism, because when you have a community, an engaged community that wants to innovate and create new things, it's very likely that through crowdfunding you could have new funds to the project. So we created a specific website, a specific program located in the city with the power of the backup of the city. So for every penny, for every euro that these people could get from their communities and from their circles, the city hall added another one. We doubled the bet, and we were able to get 40,000 euros for the campaign with 4 projects that we delivered on the last edition. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, and this is the future. The future, and especially with the COVID, we want to make the people designing the physical layout of the city. So we're going to start by a program. It's called The City Starts at Home. So that starting by designing our own chairs, tables, etc., we want to end up designing the urban furniture of the city. And this is related to the project of the new European Bauhaus, a big European project that the Commission has just launched, where we have sustainability, inclusion, and design. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Daniel. Thank you very much for again the inspiring and very practical presentation, because sometimes the people that we are not working specifically on a city level, it's difficult to grasp and understand. But thanks for sharing also the video. Thank you very much. So now we are going to go to the next presentation, just to finalize the set of presentation, also as a matter of to control the time. And then we will have a moment for the debate. We have already some questions, and we look forward to the discussions. Thank you, Daniel. So now I would like to give the floor to Karina. Karina, thank you very much for joining. We really look forward to listen what Umeå is doing when we talk about urban innovation platform. Please, Karina, go ahead. I think Karina is a little frozen. Now we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Now we can see your screen.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
So, perfect. And
perfect. We see the
people
slide.
can see me. Yes. Welcome to Umeå. Umeå is a small town in European perspective, but it's the biggest city in North Sweden. We've got a population of about 130,000 people. It's a young city, it's a student city. So it's a perfect place for innovation. Umeå is a very growing city. It grows really fast at the moment. And this is something that we want to happen, but it will not be on expense of on the sustainability of the city. So that's why we are working in this urban innovation platform. I'm gonna try to explain how we are working on it. I'm not gonna say that we are there yet. We are not finished. We don't have it all in place, but we are working on the process with it. And there we are. This is City Hall, my office, where I work from the outside. From the inside, you could say that it looks like this. I don't know if it makes sense in English, but this is a typical metaphor that we are using when we try to explain that the organization is parted in different parts, and everyone is working in their own rain pipe kind of, or drainage pipe, and we forget to work together. So our goal with the innovation platform is try to create a different kind of rain pipe that goes together, the different perspectives, the different departments, so we're not working too isolated from each other. This is an attempt to explain that. It's the innovation platform in the middle consists of, you could say that it's several different innovation platforms with different themes, with innovation teams in each one. Each theme has its own coordinator, inviting the different perspectives also from the outside. This could also be a visualization of what we're trying to achieve within the City Hall from the different departments. But it's very important to invite to these teams, people from the research, from businesses, from NGOs and everything. But what we are trying then to achieve both inside and outside is to mix this up a bit, meaning that sometimes if you are a smart city specialist, you could be part of the social innovation instead, or vice versa. This is also something that could happen within the City Hall. It's not always, you don't have to be a specialist in the subject to create innovations, and we have seen that it's sometimes new crazy things just appear when you bring someone different into the group. A large part of this, what we're doing in the internal work, is also to prepare the people from, or change the the way that a city person is is perceived from the outside. Sometimes we are seen a bit square because we work in our different drain pipes, and it's difficult to approach the city hall people with something. I'm gonna stay with the social the social sustainability, because like I said, this is really, really important for us. It's something that's also very difficult to measure. We know it's about developing local societal values and local identity. We know that this is something that's sometimes forgotten. It's part of the sustainability. Sustainability has 3 legs, but social sustainability is the thing that we sometimes prioritize a bit lower when we talk about innovations. And especially, I think, when we work in smart city projects, we are a bit focused on the technology part and forget the social sustainability part. We have made an attempt to try to figure out how the city, the state of the social sustainability in the city by developing indicators for this. We've had this massive city dialogue that we talk to people about everything, about what they like about the city, what they are looking forward in the future, and so on. But we also looked into the aspect of people, how they interact with each other, working together with the scientists or the researchers. We did this big survey asking these kind of questions, like, is it common to talk to neighbors, and so on. This is like an indicator that we try to develop. The social capital, it could be seen as a measure of social sustainability. It's not the same, but it's very connected. It's about networking and how people trust each other in the areas. We know that living areas with high social capital are also healthier. This is especially true when it comes to women. It's very important to socialize and help each other. We've seen this during the COVID also. This is kind of a bit of a bit funny, as Scandinavians are seen a bit, like not so socializing. You can look at the online, you find loads of jokes like this about Sweden. If you're looking for small talk, you're in the wrong country. This is a typical scene from a Swedish bus stop. People are standing distances from each other in their own personal space. Here's another one. Bus stop in Sweden before Corona, after Corona, it's just the same. We've practiced social distance forever. But staying a bit to this picture is what we have in the background when we developed our new bus stop within the ruggedized project, a smart bus stop, looking at how people are acting here. They are standing far from each other, looking at the bus or the phone. The new bus stop became like this. You can see the link up there. You can use that if you want to see the whole story about it. There are films also, but I don't have time to show them now. But the goal with the bus stop was actually to create a smart bus stop that would save energy in the buses. Our buses are electrical, and in the winter time, when they stop and open the doors, they lose a lot of heat. So we wanted to speed up the procedure, the boarding procedure. And what it's doing, kind of, it's got this, there are several lines trafficking this bus stop, and when the bus is approaching, you get a different light or a different colored light depending on which bus is coming. and there's also a soundscape, and it's meant to be relaxing and everything. And these pods that people are standing in, from the beginning, that was the thought was that, well, people, they want to have their personal space, so let's make personal space for them. But what happened was that when people standing in these personal spaces, they are turnable also. They seem to turn to each other because they are safe in their little pod and start talking to each other. So it's a much more socializing in this bus stop than in other bus stops. And this was something that we didn't anticipate. So this got us also thinking, what can we as a city do when we create things in public space? How can we enable people to interact and socialize with each other? We have something that we did before. Another example, just quickly, is Free Zone, it's called. We went the other way than including lots of people in something. We excluded all people except young girls, because we saw that young girls were usually not part of creating or part of dialogue or creating something that we did in the city. We saw like a risk because there were lots of young girls starting to hang around in the city center. So we talked to them, and here we found out that there were not many places that were created for what they wanted to do. They just wanted to hang around. All places that we create in the city are meant to be some kind of activity. For example, if a football field, they could hang around there just sunbathing, and then a group of guys came saying, go away, we need to play football. They had to leave. Wherever they went, the skate park, you're supposed to be skating. So this was something that we did together with the girls for them. A place free from expectations, fears, and insecurity, where everyone could feel welcome. It's a really nice park. Yes. So in the end, this is a picture from one of our colleagues in another city. I've made this picture, and it's kind of a picture showing easily what we're trying to achieve. Just an easy way to come with your ideas, no matter who you are, and we are, as a city, the facilitator for people to meet in some, because you need somewhere to turn when you have your ideas, and we need to get connected with people with ideas to be able to create what we are aiming for, the sustainable city. Yeah, that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karina, for the presentation and for introducing. It's not common to listen to the social sustainability component. As you said in the beginning, the economy always is prevailing, and then the environmental. But now talking about social component, I think that is a very good input on your side. I love the two bus stops and the park. I think it's wonderful. And thank you very much also for sharing the part of the work that you are doing in Umeå to involve citizens in the process. Thank you very much, Karina. So now we are going to go to start the debate. As I said, we have several questions already. Please, I also encourage our participants, if you have other questions, please put it in the chat or in the questions and answer session. I would like, please, to ask our panelists to connect again the camera so we can see our faces. I know that Danielle has not a camera available, but the rest of us, we can do it. So just to see us, I think that not having this face-to-face session sometimes people just get a little disconnected. But now we are here, and thank you very much for that. So I would like to start the discussion with Magnus, because I think that Magnus, you introduced this concept of urban innovation platform. I have one question: is this urban innovation platforms that are targeting sustainability aspects something new, or is just here in Europe, in other parts of the world? Based on your experience, we have seen examples of 3 European cities, but how is this in the rest of the world, in other contexts? Can you give us just some insights about that?
I think there has been several ways to organize this kind of collaboration. During the 90s, we have the Agenda 21 from the Rio conference once upon a time, when we talk about collaboration. I think the word urban innovation platforms is maybe something new. When you talk about urban innovation platforms, and you're talking about platforms, and also, as you said, Daniela, the idea of data platforms has somewhere been transferred or copied into more collaborative, more softer collaborative ways. Of course, you can find similar ways in other parts of the world. I think I have one example from the city of Cape Town, where the University of Cape Town and the city of Cape Town collaborates around research, and something they call embedded researchers, and also a broader collaboration about how you can work with sustainable urban development and co-production of knowledge. So that's one example. So I think you can find other examples from, for example, in Kisumu in Africa, when they also have this kind of urban innovation platforms. So of course, but I think the new thing today is that the new demands on cities and the new governance landscapes calls for new structures of collaborative governance. And I think that is maybe something, both when it comes to this new kind of complex issues, climate change, for example, and also a more both global and local demands on governance. I think these new demands of collaborative governance also create needs for new kind of platforms or arenas or governance structures. So that's something new.
Perfect, Magnus. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that, yeah, as you said, yeah, this issue of addressing complex problems, wicked problems on a city level is where urban innovation platforms can make a very important role. As you also, Magnus, mentioned the importance of having this governance part, and I would like to take the attention of what Christine was mentioning in Glasgow within the Sustainable Glasgow Partnership. Christine, I understood that you are involved in several departments of the municipality, several stakeholders, but our question is, what about citizens? How are you engaging citizens in this process?
Yeah, of course. So I really should have included that probably in my presentation. I said about the terms of reference that were set out for each of the hubs, and that's basically how they operate, those hubs that report into Sustainable Glasgow. But what is set out in those terms of reference is that each of the hubs really has to embed best practice in public engagement. So it's really for the chairs and the projects in the hubs. It could be different for each project that comes out of the hub as to how they will decide on citizen engagement for that one particular thing. The other thing I would say is as well that Sustainable Glasgow itself has just appointed a communications officer. So we have a newly appointed communications officer in place, and that communications officer is currently working on a strategy for us. And the strategy will detail how we will continue to engage with our partners, but also how we will engage with the public and really bring them in to the conversations that we're having. So making sure that all the work that we're doing is public facing. So the website, I guess, is the first step in that. But as the board and the hubs progress, we will have a lot more citizen engagement, and that will be really important to us as we move forward and tackle the climate emergency.
Okay, very good, Christine. I think that now with all this movement of climate emergency and the young population coming to the streets demanding action from local governments is really a point that local governments should consider in order to address the concern of young people especially. Thank you, Christine. Another question I would like to bring Danielle, because Danielle, as we understand from the experience in Zaragoza, you are working a lot with the citizens per se. On structuring this process, can you tell us a little what was specifically the role of the municipality before and after? You mentioned this crowdfunding platform and how you are addressing the process, but what was the role of the municipality? Which departments from the municipality were leading these processes? Daniel, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I was muted.
Perfect.
Yeah, we've reflected a lot on that. I think we think that the municipality's role now is a facilitator of innovation. Mm-hmm. Some years ago, it would have been struck to many people to see the word innovation and city hall in the same sentence, but now it doesn't strike anyone anymore. So because I think we've had a sensation from inside the municipalities that the people that are working also here, we want to be part of this urban innovation process. We want we don't want to be left out of this process, because it's inspiring and it's fun also to work for the municipality and also to be able to promote innovation and of course to improve your city. So but we don't have the means and resources to lead innovation, at least in our case. So I think that we can be this connector, this facilitator mechanism from all the good ideas and spot the right people, the engaged citizens, the right startups, the right agencies, and be a little bit, contribute to the software of the innovation ecosystem. And also provide the hardware.
Yes,
okay, because
that's true.
This is very important.
That's true. Thank you very much, Danielle. So taking the same issue about engaging citizens and taking things forward, Karina, as I said before, when you mentioned this concept of social sustainability, which is something that as I said before, is commonly addressed by other forums and innovation platforms, I would like to also ask you, how did you involve citizens in the innovation platforms that you mentioned, especially, for example, citizens that are not so familiar with technology, like elderly people or other non-included groups of population? Can you give us a little some insights about that, Karina?
Yeah, I mean, one thing was what I was talking about, the park for the young girls. Mm-hmm. There we took the other way around, that we included only them in order to make them heard. That's one thing of doing it, saying that no one else is allowed to have their say in this. And you're saying that sometimes elderly people are not as familiar with technology. It's not always true. We yeah. think so, but we have noticed that this can be completely different. But I think one thing that was really good was this city dialogue that we've been doing, when people from the city has been out in the neighborhoods talking to people. This really engaged people, everyone, because it's not just technology, it's about everything. So starting to talk about something that someone is very engaged in can spill over to becoming something completely different. And that's a bit the way we try to work to I don't know if you could call it lure people in to become involved. So yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, Karina. Thank you for sharing that. And I would like to ask a question to all of our panelists. You mentioned COVID, and I think that we cannot forget about COVID anymore, and especially when we are talking about innovation processes. Now that COVID has impacted economy, environmental quality, and several aspects, how in your different environments and in the municipality, and also Magnus in your research work, how do you think COVID has impacted urban innovation platforms developments? Do you think this has been positive or negative? So I would like to ask you all of this. How do you think COVID has impacted urban innovation platforms development? Anyone that would like to start?
I can start and jump in. I think what we learned from COVID is that it's very easy to change. If we are forced, for example, this digitalization on speed that happens both when we meet, and that also because we become more used to digitalization, we also become more used with like this seminar, for example. We don't need to travel to be in the same room. We could sit around and share information and share experience. On the other hand, I think what COVID also learned us that sometimes we need to meet. The meeting and the personal meetings are also important. So I think COVID has both learned us that we could use technology in a very creative way, and we could collaborate, and that's also expand the possibilities to create platforms. For example, it's rather easy to set up a global innovation platform because we could collaborate very easily through these digital networks. On the other hand, it's also learned that to be really creative and really innovative, maybe we need to be in the same room, because you can't do anything through the computer screen.
It's true. It's true. Thank you very much. I don't know who else would like to jump in.
I can jump in, just connecting to what I was talking about, that we are kind of aiming to make people more open to each other and talk to each other and notice each other in the neighborhood. In a growing city, this might disappear, that you know who your neighbor is, but something that we have heard during COVID, for example, from the people working in supermarkets, is that people suddenly stay when they pay, and they talk and they talk and they talk more. They can stay there for long. So people really need to socialize. This is really good, and we have, like Magnus said, we've had the new innovations in the digitalization, and we know that we can change. Look at all the activities that happens outdoors. Just everything that we used to do inside, we do it outdoors together, more almost, even if we don't gather many together. But so yeah, I think it's been, that part has been great. We know that we need to socialize, and we need to know what our neighbors are doing a bit, not too much maybe, but yeah.
It's true. Keeping the privacy point. Okay, thank you.
Just enough.
Thank you very much. Yes, Karina. I don't know, Christine, how COVID has impacted all the wonderful plans you have in Glasgow.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess kind of echoing what Magnus and Karina have both said as well. There have been advantages and disadvantages. It's very easy for us now to all meet online, particularly when the innovation platform itself and all the hubs meet so frequently. We might not have as high attendance at those hubs if people had to travel in person to come in to the city council building. It's much easier, so we have a really good attendance from various partners across the city because there's no travel requirement and they could just log on to the computer, so that's great. So we have lots of partners from various organisations that we may not normally get their time, which is fantastic. But I do agree that having face-to-face meetings is vital for certain conversations to be had. It's really important that we do have that human interaction. And I think as well, kind of echoing what Karina was saying on communities and that kind of community spirit, I think it's really good for the city and the citizens, because I think there is a sense of community empowerment almost, because everything had to stop. So people then started to re-engage with the community round about them and their neighbours, which is fantastic. And it's really nice that we're getting back to that, and that has been reintroduced, I guess, because everyone's slowed down and stopped running around so much, and everyone's not as caught up in their own lives, so people are much more willing to interact and look after their city, and probably are a lot more interested in the projects now that are coming from our innovation platform.
Yeah, Christine, thank you very much. Daniel, what has been going in Zaragoza?
Yeah, for us, the COVID has represented, I mean, the need for readapt very quickly our priorities and also our means. It all started by putting the Fab Labs at the service of the manufacturing of masks and facial protection shields, and we did that also with the knowledge of the crowd, because there was this big movement of makers that produced fantastic designs that could be manufactured with 3D printers, etc., etc. It was a very challenging times, because to do so in the midst of the pandemic with everything closed, no people allowed on the street, even to, I mean, it was very, very, very challenging, but it was also very rewarding. So and then the next priority was to focus on the commercial sector, on the local shops that were hardly struck by the crisis. So we refocused on that priority, trying to channel citizen innovation to producing new programs, so everyone could feel safe and could come back to the local shops. Also, we had to help the local shops to stay competitive with online commerce and online shopping. We know that Amazon has represented a threat to all our commercial tissue, and we're working on that. I mean, these are our top priorities. So I want everything I want to look at the bright side of life every time. So for us, it also represents an opportunity to work on new fields and to really be, you know, useful and meaningful in the projects that we do.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Daniel. Very, very inspiring. And I think that just one reflection on our side, on the ICLEI side, because you know that we work with several cities, with several projects, and we have seen that that COVID has helped cities to advance in their sustainability agendas regarding, when we talk about sustainable mobility, for example, also in the public space, adapting the public space for a healthier environment. That is another thing that is also going forward in different cities of the world, and especially in Europe. So we also really think that COVID has made a shift towards advancing the sustainability and resilience agendas in Europe in general. So thank you very much for your points. And I think that we have just 5 more minutes, and I would like now to do a short exercise, because we have several people connected from different cities. We have some people from academia, we have other participants from the smart city community here. So I would like to ask you if you can give us some advices, okay? Cities that are starting the journey of urban innovation platforms development. I don't know, probably Magnus, we can start with you. What 2 or 3 key actions that you would suggest or recommend to local governments to start this journey, or probably make better the processes that they are doing? And then we will go also with our city's representatives.
I think it's important for local government, if you go back to this kind of govern to gather the right people, and also maybe make sure that you gather new groups. Maybe not, of course, we need to get the private sector on board, and we need the citizens on board. But if we using Umeå as an example, when they decide to create a specific meeting point for young girls, then you gather a specific group. Maybe you, as a local government, should think through what kind of groups in the city need to get on board, what kind of groups are not usually involved in in discussions about the city future and are not usually involved in innovation process. So do a smart selection and a smart gathering of relevant groups and try to, if you're using a cliche, try to think out of the box and try to involve groups from the city or not usually are involved in dialogues and meetings and so on.
Thank you very much, Magnus. Other advice or recommendations from Daniel, Christine?
Yeah,
maybe I
was
can
say-
jump in. I'm sorry.
Sorry, do you want to
So
go?
Christine, no, Christine and then Daniel.
Okay, I was going to say, just really know what it is you're trying to achieve, and then you can get your partners and other organisations and communities involved. And I think if you've got a clear vision of what you're looking to achieve and set out clear targets, then it makes it a lot easier and makes the process a lot easier. As I'd said previously, we had a different kind of model that we used initially, and then we had to change that because it wasn't fit for purpose really, and that was just a learning process for our city, and I think it's really important moving forward that we've set out quite clear and concise aims and objectives for everyone involved, and I think doing that and making that quite clear to everyone involved keeps everybody on track and means that we can actually deliver successful projects and innovations.
Perfect, Christine. So now, Daniel?
Well, if I were to give just one single advice, is build a place or have a place to complement also your urban innovation platform. So physical meetings and it's really important for a sustainable ecosystem.
Perfect, Daniel. Karina?
Yeah, I would say that don't start to try to build a giant governance structure. Start with good examples of good innovation work and how that could benefit your city, and the structure will come.
Perfect, Karina. Thank you very much. Wonderful. I think that I really like when someone from the field, because you are there together with the citizens and can bring these insights to other cities that are connected from across the world, is very important. Just to finalize a little the discussion today, I would just like to mention that within the Ruggedize project, we are covering also the how can I say, the impact assessment part of the different interventions that we are doing, and that is one of the key challenges that we are facing now, how to assess that all these urban innovation activities or sessions or projects are taking place, but how challenging is to measure that. So in that sense, I don't know if you would like, some of you, just give a final remark on how to better assess the impacts of the different urban innovation interventions that we can do in our cities. I don't know if some of you would like to mention something about the impact assessment frameworks.
I can maybe jump in. We there are so many frameworks, so many KPIs. There is an ISO organization. We participated in one project sponsored by the Commission to set up a framework, and we participate in many projects. And in each project, one of the tasks is to build a new framework, a new set of KPIs. And yeah, so I would like people to adhere to one of the existing frameworks. I'm going to advocate for City Keys. City Keys was sponsored by the European Commission. Could be ISO also, but yeah, let's not reinvent the wheel each time. Let's try to lean on thoughtful projects. And also one thing important to KPIs is really really define minimum set of KPIs of impact and really really meaningful. I mean, let's try to grasp the qualitative approaches into KPIs, because It's not about how many citizens download an app. It's about how the citizens receive value through this app, and that is much more difficult to grasp.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. I don't know if Magnus, you would like to.
No, I think that was. I think I really agree with that. You should try to avoid to invent the wheel, because if we want to measure changes in the long term, we need to stick with some methods. And I also agree with that. It's important to try to grasp the qualitative dimensions, to using understand the process of sense making. I think it's important, and also important to find ways to measure the more social issues. I think there are some examples from Umeå that you can measure the interaction between people and try to mapping the interaction. So the easiest part is to measure for example, the reduction of carbon dioxide and the changes in public transport and things. I think the tricky way is to measure the more qualitative changes and the social transformations.
Perfect, Magnus. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't know if Karina and Christine would like to do a final remark. And yes, Karina.
I would just say that, I mean, we are super not good at doing this. That's why we always make sure to bring researchers into our innovation platforms or innovation teams, because this is what they do. They know this. There are the researchers that have helped us with the indicators for social capital. We could never have done that from the city side.
Perfect. Yeah, and Christine, just to finalize.
Yeah, absolutely. So internally within our organisation, I should have mentioned it earlier, we actually were establishing a PMO to actually monitor all of our key projects. So they'll look at all our KPIs so that we do have,